What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and we are continuing on with our Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerun coverage. This time, it's the Scion of the Three Rogue. If you're a fan of Baldur's Gate 3, then this is probably going to be a class you might be interested in, given that the three are the dead gods, or the dead three, Bane, Baal, and Merkel, which again, if you're a BG3 fan, I'm sure you're well aware of. This is actually a pretty interesting subclass. Kind of came out of left field. I wasn't really expecting a sort of divine, if you will, based rogue, but that's what we have. This is kind of continuing on the theory that we've had for a while, that we're starting to get different aspects of other classes, not in full, but intermingled. Sometimes it's kind of more in the way of RP, like this, or in more hard mechanics, like how the Oath of the Genie Paladin gets essentially unarmored defense. So if you like this kind of content, other kind of D&D related content, news or otherwise, consider subscribing to the channel. It's a simple click for you guys. It does a bunch for me, and I haven't picked up physical copies of it yet. I have to see if my local game store has them, but I will be doing a giveaway at some point. Actually, I have a handful of giveaways I'm going to be doing. Stranger Things, the new box set, starter set, as well as these books. I just have to get the physical copies in, and then just stay tuned to the socials for those giveaways. They're all free to enter. But anyway, let's dive into the Scion of the Three Rogue. Here you can see our kind of iconic, if you will, our tiefling here, who has a ball sort of tattoo on her arm. All right, so what do we get? Our first feature here at level 3 is Bloodthirst. When an enemy you can see within 30 feet of yourself takes damage and is bloodied, reminder that if you were to mouse over this, this is a new official term. It's existed in previous editions. Some people have used it. It is now officially codified in 5th edition 2024. A bloodied creature is a creature that has half of its hit points or less. This applies obviously to enemies as well as to yourself and your allies, your party members. But anyway, if a creature within 30 feet of yourself takes damage and is bloodied after taking that damage but not killed outright, you can take a reaction to teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 5 feet of that enemy. You can then make one melee attack. You can use this feature intelligence modifier times per long rest. Now again, this is you doing this as a reaction, which means it's outside of your traditional turn order. And if for one reason or another you are eligible for sneak attack, this allows you to do a second sneak attack in a turn. Again, the sort of qualifier for sneak attack is you can only do it once on a turn, meaning that you can't stab somebody as like an action, get your sneak attack damage, and then turn around and stab them as a bonus action and get back-to-back sneak attacks. However, using a reaction on not your turn to teleport to an enemy and attack them is not that same turn. It's a different turn order, which would allow you to get sneak attack if you were eligible. Probably the most easy to understand example is it's your turn, you've already done your sneak attack, and you've moved on. It's now one of your allies' turns. Your ally, let's say it's a fighter, paladin, barbarian, what have you, moves up to an enemy and hits them, doing enough damage to them to now bloody them from that attack. You can now teleport within 5, as long as you're within 30 feet, teleport to 5 feet next to that creature and make an attack against them. Having an ally within 5 feet makes you eligible for sneak attack. So this is a very powerful ability that can allow you to do a lot of very interesting things in terms of combat, because you'll be able to really tag team enemies pretty well with maybe your more tanky melee type, and you can just pop in, get an attack off, and intelligence modifier times per long rest. I do feel like rogues often, aside from wizards and the like, do tend to favor intelligence just because of things like investigation, as well as usually having a lot of skill proficiencies. So also this is just going to make you an intelligence-based subclass, but that is very powerful maneuverability on the battlefield and a chance to pop off a real serious damage boost. And again, it's per long rest, but still, this is potentially, up to 5 additional sneak attacks, double sneak attack turns in a day, which is pretty nuts. That's just feature 1. Feature 2 is called Dread Allegiance. Choose one of the dead three, Bane, Baal, or Merkel. You gain resistance to a damage type and the ability to cast a cantrip as detailed below. You use intelligence for that. Your options are Bane gives you psychic damage resistance and the ability to cast the minor illusion spell. Baal gives you poison resistance and the ability to cast the Blade Ward cantrip. And Merkel gives you resistance to necrotic damage and the Chill Touch cantrip. Now, again, the Bane and Baal ones are utility cantrips, and Minor Illusion has a bunch of utility. A lot of that is limited to what your DM and you can work out together. Blade Ward is when a creature attacks you, it subtracts a d4 from the attack roll. And then Chill Touch, obviously being now a touch attack that does still necrotic damage, which bothers me because it feels like it should be, uh, you know, chill, cold damage. But either way, it is now a melee attack that does a d10 necrotic damage and they can't heal. But either way, so, make that decision. And I don't believe when you finish a long rest, yeah, you can change this choice. So you're not hard locked into this. I feel like if this was a 2014 subclass, you probably would have been hard locked. You are now able to choose on a completion of a long rest. So obviously make your decision, right? If you know you're going to be going up against a bunch of undead, probably go with Merkel. If you're going to be fighting a lot of mind flayers, probably Bane. Get that psychic damage, necrotic damage resistance accordingly. All right. At level 9, you get Strike Fear. You get an additional option for usage with your Cunning Strike. If you forgot how Cunning Strike works, this is a feature of the 2024 Rogue where they are able to remove dice off of their sneak attack damage in favor of doing something else, typically either a CC, crowd control type move, or maybe some additional movement or what it might be. So you have Terrify, which is you are sacrificing a d6 off of your sneak attack damage to force the target to make a wisdom saving throw or have the frightened condition for 1 minute. While frightened, you have advantage against attack rolls against this target. Again, if you have advantage on attack rolls against a target, you're eligible for sneak attack against them, right? Those are the two main qualifiers for sneak attack. If you have advantage on the attack roll against the target, or if there's an ally within 5 feet, all predicated on you not having disadvantage on the attack roll. And it says the frightened target gets to repeat the save at the end of each of its turns, ending it on a success. Notice there is no thing. A lot of fear effects in the game typically say if you succeed, you're immune for 24 hours. That is not the case here. So you can potentially be terrifying multiple combatants because it doesn't limit it to one target on a turn. If you have, say, dual wielding and maybe Nick as the property of that, so you can maybe make 3 attacks on a turn, let's say, you could stab 3 creatures and then frighten all 3 of them. Oh, I guess only 1, right? I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Because it's predicated on sneak attack, you can only do it once a turn. But obviously, if we talked about Bloodthirst, right? If Bloodthirst were to trigger, you could terrify a secondary target. And if they continue to fail the saving throws to remain frightened, you can continue to move around the battlefield and strike at enemies continuing to frighten them. Because frightened, let's be real, isn't a bad condition. Frightened is attack rolls and ability checks have disadvantage as long as they can see you, the source of their fear, and they can't willingly move closer to you. If you are able to possibly trigger Terrify and then Bloodthirst in multiple instances, there is a potential chance where you can, if there's multiple enemies on the board, bounce around and terrify most, if not all, of the combatants on the field, assuming they're able to survive both your allies' turns and your turns with sneak attack. But that puts you in a very good battlefield control situation, which I very much like the process of it. And don't forget, not only are they getting all the debuffs that come along with Frightened, it is not concentration. They are just frightened for a minute. You also get advantage on the attack rolls against those frightened targets, allowing, now it's only you get advantage, so it's not like it's giving that advantage to your allies. You get advantage, but again, that potentially allows you to trigger sneak attack, maybe even get real lucky and get a critical hit on a sneak attack to do a ton of damage. And again, they don't get to repeat that saving throw until the end of their turn. which means any allies that are between then and now benefit from the fact that those attack rolls that are incoming are at disadvantage as long as they can see you, the source of their fear. Very, very good utility in this. Level 13, you get Aura of Malevolence. Uh, when you use Bloodthirst, the level 3 feature, and Teleport, each creature of your choice within 10 foot of the space you either left or the space you arrive in takes damage equal to your intelligence modifier. The damage type is the same as the damage resistance granted by Dread Allegiance, and this ignores resistance. Now, this isn't a ton of damage, but it has the potential to set up some things, right? If you have allies on your team that deal extra damage to creatures that aren't at their full hit points. Maybe this will be enough to bloody a creature for you to just take off a little bit of damage to potentially, I guess, well, I mean, for the other allies, right? So let's set up that scenario. An ally of yours attacks an enemy, which is enough to deal damage to them and make them bloodied. You do your 30-foot teleport to them, triggered by Bloodthirst. You make your attack against them. And then again, with Aura of Malevolence, either creatures of your choice, by the way, so ally protected, either within 10 feet of you, so 10 feet in any direction from the space you left, all take whatever that's either psychic, poison, or necrotic damage equal to your intelligence modifier, or creatures in the space you land in. So this could potentially be damaging, obviously, the one that triggered the Bloodthirst, the creature that just got bloodied, and then any allies they have around them. And again, you're avoiding your allies on this, only hitting enemies. And that damage, again, ignores resistance. Psychic and necrotic damage, if you're fighting undead, they may be necrotic resistant. Poison resistance is pretty common. So, I mean, it's not a ton of damage. I would have liked to have maybe seen this increased by a small amount, but for the most part, this is just a nice little bit of chip damage that you're able to deal here. And then lastly, at 17, you get Dread Incarnate. You regain a use of your Bloodthirst feature when you finish a short rest. Again, it's intelligence modifier times per long rest here until level 17. You're now getting one use back on a short rest, which is one expended use, by the way. So you're not able to use this to continue to basically build yourself back up to full. It's one expended use, but if you do actually no, it's one expended use. So if you spend them all, let's say in the first combat, and you just take multiple short rests, you can get back multiple uses. So you can't obviously overstack to go beyond your intelligence modifier, but if you take multiple short rests, you're going to be able to possibly get right back up to full Bloodthirst because it doesn't limit the number you get. You just get back one expended use. So if you were to put this in a party with, let's say, a fighter and a warlock, maybe a monk, you're going to be very strong after a short rest. And you also get Murderous Intent. When you roll damage for sneak attack, you treat a roll of a 1 or a 2 as a 3. This is very big. You're rolling d6s for sneak attack, and you're turning a potential 1 or 2 into a 3. So your minimum damage for all of your sneak attack dice is 3. Obviously, you can go all the way up to 6. I really like this feature a lot. We see that in a couple of spots in 2024. This is pretty strong as far as rogue subclasses go. I also like the concept of you really potentially diving into the thematics of it as much as you want, right? You are a scion of one of the dead three gods, right? While some rogues of this subclass pledge themselves ardently to these three macabre gods, others are thrust onto this path by a curse. Either way, a scion's power manifests as various occult gifts, as well as an uncanny talent for striking and terrifying foes. Not only is it very mechanically strong in every way, again, Aura of Malevolence being probably the weakest piece here, although not bad by any means, it gives you a ton of interesting roleplay options. The concept of someone being cursed to be a scion of the dead three is very interesting. That gives you a lot of fun roleplay options. Like, you didn't choose this power. And then that gets into the whole, should I even be utilizing this power, right? I didn't ask for this. This power was thrust upon me. Do I use it? Is that bad if I don't want this power, I don't respect these deities, but they've cursed me or someone's cursed me with these capabilities? Is this if I have this power, I should use it? Or am I a bad person for even contemplating doing so? And then you have to, grapple with that. Obviously, you also could just treat this essentially as almost like a cleric or a paladin, or a warlock, right? They're sort of your patron, you're venerating these three gods, and you're doing your best to try to improve your standing within the eyes of these deities in hopes to maybe gain more power or whatever the case might be. A lot of very interesting role play options. As promised, I meant to have this pulled up ahead of time. We're going to go ahead and look at this version of this subclass that was in the Unearthed Arcana to see if anything has changed significantly. I believe most of this remained the same, but we'll go ahead and take a look. So Bloodthirst was still here at level 3. All right, it has changed. It says if your sneak attack had bloodied a creature, the target takes extra damage equal to half your rogue level rounded up. In addition, when an enemy you can see is reduced to 0 hit points, you can take a reaction to teleport to within 30 feet of them. You can then make one melee attack. Again, this is not as good as the version we have. It was just letting you deal a little bit of extra damage. And then again, an enemy needed to be reduced to 0 hit points for you to teleport to any unoccupied space within 30 feet, potentially triggering an attack. I like this, that you're kind of ganging up on an enemy here. I think that that's pretty strong. Looks like Dread Allegiance is still the same here. Strike Fear was Terrify, again, still wisdom saving throw. They repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns. They did not have the option that you have advantage on frightened creatures, so they actually added that in to Strike Fear, making it much stronger. Let's see if Aura of Malevolence changed at all. At the start of each of your turns, each creature of your choice within a 10-foot emanation takes damage equal to your intelligence modifier. Okay, so this was basically Aura of Malevolence in the Unearthed Arcana. I actually kind of like it a little bit better. It was basically like an anti-paladin aura, kind of. You are just dealing damage to enemies of your choice at the start of each of your turns. It's now triggered on when you activate Bloodthirst, but and it is still 10 feet. Yeah, 10 feet from you. It's still damage equal to your intelligence modifier. This is significantly, it doesn't really feel like an aura. Like, I wouldn't have probably called it Aura of Malevolence. I might have given it a different name because it's not an aura. It's a triggering burst, like, I don't know, burst of malevolence feels wrong, but it's a trigger upon when you use the Bloodthirst feature, which means it's not an always on aura. It's just when that's chosen to be activated, then it triggers. The version in Unearthed Arcana is an aura. It's constantly present from around you, just dealing slow chip damage to any enemy within 10 feet of you. I actually like this version of Aura of Malevolence better because it's still, I mean, if you were to have kept that, it still would trigger with Bloodthirst at the start of your turn, so it still allows you to move around and have the options to potentially put you in a spot. You also could do the whole, like, I'm going to take the disengage action and just run around. Well, I guess it's only at the start of your turn. So it's not like I guess, is it an aura? I don't know. When I think of an aura, I'm thinking of something that's constantly ever present, almost like a spirit guardians or a paladin aura. This only triggers at the start of your turn. So even if you were to zip around the battlefield and like tag multiple enemies with this, it only triggers if they're within 10 feet of you at the start of your turn. But again, as I said, with the new version of Bloodthirst allowing you to teleport off of your turn to an enemy and strike them, there's the potential that if that happened before your turn, they're going to get hit with that chip damage. But then again, they would have gotten hit with it anyway, potentially, using the version that's here. So I don't know. This one makes more sense in my head as an aura that it's present at the start of each of your turns, but I recognize the benefit of how this is going to be, like, it's going to be an active usage of it. And lastly, Dread Incarnate used to be you have advantage on any creature that's frightened, and then the sneak attack murderous intent. I very much like this change here because they moved, obviously, the frighten feature up to terrify and gave you the ability to get bloodthirst uses back on a short rest. So I think overall, this is definitely an improvement over the Unearthed Arcana. Aura of Malevolence, I'm still a little uncertain on that. Again, the damage only being equal to your intelligence modifier feels a little on the low side, right? For most games, the maximum that's ever going to be is 5. Could that be your intelligence modifier plus your proficiency bonus? Could it be your intelligence modifier plus half your rogue level? I don't know. But either way, a very, very strong subclass. I've often said that I haven't had an opportunity to ever actually sit down and play a rogue in a very like a consistent long-term campaign. And I was never really sure. I always liked the old scout rogue, but I like this one a lot. Again, when as I've said before, the best recommendation I can give to a subclass is that I would play it, and I would absolutely play the Scion of the three rogue. I also very much have a tendency to lean towards divine classes or classes with sort of a connection or characters, I guess, really, with a connection to a higher power of some degree, because not only does that give me the opportunity to get a lot of self-contained role play if like the game is kind of all over the place and I want to get a little bit of role play for my character, I can always reach out to whatever my other entity is, whether that's a patron or a god or something like that. It also gives me the opportunity to help be the conduit for the dungeon master if they're trying to get the party on track to do a certain thing, to go a certain way. I can always pray or reach out, commune, whatever it might be, with my chosen deity, and they can always help steer me on the path that I need to go on, which also gives the DM that opportunity to sort of in universe, not necessarily railroad the party, but direct the where we're going. So, anyway, stay tuned next time for the Spell Fire Sorcery Sorcerer, and I will see you all next time.